Welcome back to Book Dive. I always say your morning commute can use a little boost of insight. Well, today's deep dive is going to give you just that.
Hmm.
We're going to be looking at Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck,
Yeah,
a book that really kind of flips the script on all that traditional self-help stuff.
it does.
Our mission today is to see how this counterintuitive approach can help us navigate all those pressures of modern life and figure out what really matters.
Well, what's so fascinating about this book is that it doesn't sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
It dives right into the reality that we're just bombarded with messages about being happier,
Okay.
richer, and, just better.
Better, yeah.
But Manson argues that this constant chasing of these often, unattainable ideals
Mm-hmm.
is actually what's causing a lot of our anxiety.
Yeah, it's like the more you crave something, the more you feel its absence, right?
Yeah.
It's giving me like the grass is always greener vibes.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's where Manson's backwards law comes in. He argues that the more we chase positive experiences, the more we actually highlight their lack in our own lives.
Okay.
So, like, obsessing over wealth can
Yeah.
actually make you feel poorer, or, fixating on being desired might make you feel less attractive. It's a real paradox.
So it's like if I spend all my time daydreaming about winning the lottery,
Mm.
I'm just going to feel more broke and dissatisfied with my current bank account.
Precisely. Which leads to another key concept. We only have so many fucks to give.
Okay.
So we better be choosy about where we invest them.
Right.
So if we stress about everything, we'll be exhausted and we'll miss out on what truly matters.
Yeah, this reminds me of decision fatigue. The more decisions we make in a day, the more mentally drained we become.
Yeah.
So maybe by being selective about our fucks, we could free up mental energy for the things that really deserve it.
That's a great connection. It's about simplifying and prioritizing what aligns with our values. And speaking of values, the book offers a really interesting framework for identifying what truly matters to us.
Okay.
But we'll get to that a bit later.
Okay, so we're talking about choosing our battles, not sweating the small stuff.
Right,
But how do we actually do that?
right.
It's easy to say don't stress,
Yeah.
but way harder to actually live that way.
Well, Manson introduces this hilarious concept called the disappointment panda.
Disappointment panda.
Okay.
Now you've got my attention.
All right, so picture this, a panda wearing a tiny t-shirt,
Uh-huh.
going door to door, delivering brutally honest,
Okay.
often uncomfortable truths about life. His disappointment panda. He's blunt, he's awkward, but he gets the point across.
Oh, yeah, I'm already loving this panda. So it's basically radical honesty delivered with a furry black and white twist.
Exactly. The book uses this character for laughs, but there's a deeper message there. Embracing discomfort and facing reality even when it's unpleasant.
Kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid, right?
Yeah.
Hurts for a second, then it's over and you can move on.
Yes. And this connects to the idea of emotions as signposts,
Yeah.
not commandments.
Okay.
You see, we often make the mistake of letting our emotions dictate our actions. But really, emotions are just feedback from our brains, not the final word on how we should act.
So even if I feel anxious about something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong thing to do.
Right. And the flip side is true too. Feeling good doesn't automatically make something the right choice. We need to question our emotions, figure out where they're coming from, and then make conscious choices based on our values, not just our fleeting feelings.
I think we can all relate to making decisions based on emotions, especially when we haven't really sat down and figured out what our values are.
Absolutely. It's a journey we all go through.
You know what else is a journey? This deep dive. And speaking of journeys, before we go any further, let me just remind you to hit that like button and subscribe if you're enjoying this exploration. It helps other book lovers find their way here too. Now back to the book. We're talking about learning to be more discerning about our emotions.
Yes.
This all ties back to choosing our struggles, right?
Yes.
But how do we choose the right ones?
Well, Manson uses a rather blunt example. He talks about his own failed aspirations of becoming a rock star. For years, he was in love with the idea of being on stage, but he didn't actually enjoy the process of making music.
Ooh, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fantasize about an outcome without considering all the work it takes to get there. Sure, I'd love to be a best-selling author,
Right.
but do I actually enjoy the hours of solitary writing? That's the real challenge.
Precisely. And Manson argues that true fulfillment comes from finding joy in the process, not just the end goal. It's about being present and engaged in what you're doing, not constantly chasing some future reward.
So it's not about achieving some grand outcome, but about finding meaning and satisfaction in the day-to-day grind. That's a pretty radical idea in our achievement-obsessed culture.
It is. And it leads us to one of the book's most thought-provoking concepts. You are not special.
Hold on. You are not special. Tell me more about this.
Okay.
I got to admit that one stings a little.
Don't worry, it's not meant to be harsh. It's about recognizing the pitfalls of entitlement. The book uses the example of Jimmy, a guy who's all talk and no action.
Okay.
He's so focused on feeling good about himself that he never actually accomplishes anything meaningful.
Oh, I know a few Jimmys in my life, all hype, no substance.
Exactly. And Manson's point is that by accepting that we're not inherently special or entitled, we're better equipped to confront our challenges and grow from them.
So it's about humility, right?
Mhm.
Recognizing that everyone struggles, everyone fails, and that's okay.
Precisely. And this leads us to another key concept, the importance of values. The book offers a fascinating framework for identifying good and bad values,
Okay.
which can help us choose our struggles more wisely.
Okay. I'm all ears. Let's dive into the world of values.
So we've been talking about choosing our struggles and aligning them with our values, but how do we actually put this into practice? Well, one of the most powerful strategies that Manson offers is what he calls the do something principle.
The do something principle. Okay. I like the sound of that. Sounds action-oriented. Lay it on me.
It's incredibly simple, really. When you're feeling stuck or unmotivated or just unsure about what to do, the answer is to just do something.
Okay.
Anything. Take action and let the inspiration and motivation follow.
Oh, that reminds me of a time when I was completely overwhelmed with starting this podcast. I had no idea what I was doing. I felt totally lost. But I remember something my old mentor used to say, don't just sit there staring at the problem. Do something, anything to get moving. So I just started recording random bits and pieces, and eventually it all started to come together. It's amazing how taking action can create its own momentum.
That's a perfect example. Manson himself talks about how he started his blog with no clear plan, just a sense of urgency to do something. He compares it to playing poker. You can't control the cards you're dealt, but you can choose how you play them.
It's about focusing on what you can control, not getting paralyzed by what you can't. So instead of waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan, you just dive in and figure things out as you go.
Exactly. And this applies to everything. Applying for a job, asking someone out, starting a creative project. The hardest part is often taking that first step. But once you do, things start to fall into place.
Okay, but what about when we hit a roadblock? What about failure? That's a pretty big part of the doing something process, right?
Absolutely. And Manson argues that failure is not just inevitable, it's essential. He uses the analogy of a child learning to walk. They fall countless times, but they don't just give up, they get back up and try again.
It's true. Can you imagine a baby being like, well, this walking thing is too hard because I'll just crawl forever. They're so resilient. Maybe we could all learn a thing or two from those tiny humans.
Exactly. He challenges the way we typically view success. We tend to focus on the end result, the promotion, the book deal, the perfect relationship, without acknowledging all the stumbles and failures that pave the way.
It's like that saying, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
Yes. And by reframing failure as a necessary stepping stone, we can release the fear of making mistakes and embrace the learning process.
So it's about celebrating progress, not perfection. And about being brave enough to keep going even when things get tough. Okay, I'm really digging this do something principle. It's practical, it's empowering, and it reminds us that we're not defined by our setbacks.
Yeah.
But how does this all relate to saying no? I mean, the book is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck, right?
Right?
Does that mean we should just say no to everything?
That's a great question. And the answer is no. It's not about becoming a hermit or rejecting everything outright. It's about being selective about what we allow into our lives and setting healthy boundaries.
Okay, I love a good boundary.
Yeah.
What's Manson's take on this?
He believes that a crucial aspect of any healthy relationship, whether it's romantic, familial, or even just friendships, is the ability to say no, both to others and to ourselves.
So it's about respecting our own limits and needs, as well as those of the people around us.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that we can't please everyone all the time, and that's okay. In fact, trying to do so often leads to resentment and burnout.
Yeah.
We have to prioritize our own well-being.
This reminds me of a time when I was constantly saying yes to every request, every favor, every invitation. I was stretched so thin and I wasn't even enjoying any of it. It took me a while to learn the power of saying no, but it's been life-changing. It's like I finally reclaimed those precious fucks I was giving away to things that didn't even matter to me.
That's such a great point. Manson also talks about these common patterns in relationships. The victims and the savers. Victims tend to blame others for their problems, while savers feel compelled to fix everyone else's issues. Both are rooted in a lack of responsibility and healthy boundaries.
Ooh, yeah. The classic codependent dance is like they enable each other's dysfunction.
Exactly. But by learning to say no, set boundaries, and take responsibility for our own needs, we can break free from these patterns and build healthier, more fulfilling relationships.
This is all so insightful. I'm loving this deep dive. And speaking of loving things, if you're enjoying this episode as much as I am, don't forget to leave us a comment below. We love hearing your thoughts. What's resonating with you? What are you going to start giving fewer or more fucks about?
We truly appreciate all the engagement. Now, getting back to boundaries, Manson uses a rather unexpected analogy to illustrate their importance. Romeo and Juliet.
Wait, Romeo and Juliet, the ultimate love story. How does that relate to boundaries?
He argues that while we romanticize their passionate, all-consuming love, it's actually a cautionary tale about the dangers of unhealthy boundaries. Their relationship is impulsive, reckless, and ultimately self-destructive.
I see what you mean. They're so caught up in each other that they lose sight of everything else, including their own well-being.
Exactly. And Manson uses this example to highlight the importance of maintaining a sense of self within a relationship. It's not about merging into one amorphous blob, but rather two individuals coming together, each with their own values, interests, and boundaries.
It's about interdependence, not codependence.
Precisely. And by honoring those boundaries, we create space for greater intimacy, respect, and trust to flourish.
Speaking of trust, what about when that trust is broken, like in the case of infidelity? Does the book touch on that?
It does, and Manson argues that rebuilding trust after a betrayal requires more than just an apology. The person who broke the trust needs to acknowledge the underlying values that led to their actions and demonstrate consistent changed behavior over time.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. Actions speak louder than words, right?
Exactly, and that rebuilding process takes time, effort, and a genuine commitment to growth on both sides.
Okay, so we've talked about choosing our struggles, taking responsibility, setting boundaries.
Mhm.
What other gems does this book offer?
Well, the book culminates in a powerful exploration of death.
Death. Okay, this took a turn. Tell me more, but please be gentle. I'm a bit squeamish about this topic.
Don't worry, it's not as morbid as it sounds. Manson approaches it with a mix of personal anecdotes, philosophical insights, and even a bit of humor. He explores how acknowledging our mortality can actually be a catalyst for living a more meaningful life.
Okay, intriguing, but also a little terrifying.
Oh.
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
He draws on the work of Ernest Becker, who argued that our awareness of death creates this deep-seated anxiety that drives a lot of our behavior. We create these immortality projects, careers, relationships, legacies, in an attempt to transcend our finite existence.
It's that age-old quest for meaning and purpose, right? Like we want to leave our mark on the world to feel like our lives mattered.
Exactly. But Manson suggests that these immortality projects can become traps if we cling to them too tightly,
Okay.
or if they're based on shallow or harmful values.
Right.
He tells the story of Hiru Onoda, a Japanese soldier who spent almost 30 years hiding in the jungle. After World War II ended, refusing to believe the war was over.
Wait, 30 years? That's incredible. He must have been incredibly dedicated to his mission.
He was. But it also illustrates the danger of clinging to a belief system, even when evidence contradicts it.
Right.
Manson connects this to our own lives, suggesting that we often hold on to beliefs, values, even relationships that no longer serve us, simply because we're afraid to let go.
It's like we're trapped in our own personal jungles fighting battles that have already been won.
Yes. And Manson argues that by accepting the inevitability of our own death, we can free ourselves from this fear-based clinging and make choices that are truly aligned with what matters most to us.
So it's about embracing the present moment and living a life that's true to ourselves, knowing that our time is limited. It's kind of beautiful in a dark and twisty kind of way.
Exactly. He even shares his own experience of confronting his fear of heights by literally sitting on the edge of a cliff in South Africa.
Wow, that's intense. I admire his commitment to facing his fears head-on, but I'm not sure I'm ready for cliff-sitting therapy just yet.
It's a powerful metaphor for the challenges we all face in life. And by acknowledging our mortality, we can tap into a deeper sense of courage and live more fully, knowing that every moment is precious.
So it's not about being morbid or dwelling on death, but rather about using that awareness as fuel for living a more meaningful and authentic life.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful takeaway.
Absolutely. And I think that's a beautiful and profound message.
Okay, before we wrap things up, if you're interested in checking out The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck, we've included an affiliate link in the episode description. Buying through our link helps support the show, and it's a great way to dive deeper into all the insights we've discussed today.
Now, are you ready for Manson's final takeaway?
Hit me with it. I'm ready to embrace the subtle art of not giving a feck.
He challenges us to ask ourselves the most important question of all. What are we choosing to give a fuck about? And are those things truly worth our limited time and energy?
Wow, that's a question we should all be asking ourselves regularly. It's so easy to get caught up in the busyness of life and lose sight of what truly matters.
It is, and it brings us back to the book's central theme, choosing our struggles wisely. It's not about apathy or indifference.
Right.
It's about deciding what truly matters to us and letting go of the rest.
It's like decluttering, but for our mental and emotional space. We clear out the things that don't serve us to make room for what does.
Exactly. And by doing that, we create a life that's more aligned with our values, our passions, and ultimately our true selves.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the subtle art of not giving a fuck,
Hmm.
curious, what was your biggest takeaway from the book? What really stuck with you?
For me, it's the idea that our values are the compass that guides us through life. When we choose values that are grounded in reality, that contribute to something bigger than ourselves, and that we have direct control over, we set ourselves up for a more fulfilling and meaningful existence.
That's a great point. It's not just about saying no to things. It's about saying yes to the things that truly align with who we are and what we believe in. It's about choosing our fucks wisely and investing them in things that matter.
Precisely. And I think that's a powerful and empowering message for all of us.
Well said. And for all of you listening out there, we'd love to know what your biggest takeaways were from this episode. Head over to the comments and share your thoughts. What resonated with you? What are you going to start giving fewer fucks about? And what are you going to start giving more fucks about? We're all on this journey together.
And as a final thought to ponder, Manson leaves us with this. What if this is it? What if this is all there is? It's a reminder to embrace the present moment, to savor the beauty and the messiness of life, and to live each day with intention and gratitude.
Wow, that's a powerful way to end our deep dive. It's a call to action, to live a life that's true to ourselves, a life that's filled with meaning and purpose, and a life where we choose our fucks wisely. If you want to explore these ideas further, don't forget to check out the affiliate link in the episode description where you can purchase the book. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep choosing your struggles wisely.
We'll see you next time on Book Dive.